So, Justin, that Super Bowl was not particularly enjoyable to watch. However, there is a question that I have heard recently that has given me some interest. And that question is, why have 100 million more people watch the Super Bowl than the college football national championship game? And it was interesting to me because how do you not know that? Why? It seems like the Super Bowl to me is something that's like a cultural thing in America. Like a lot of people like the Super Bowl. And the person that raised this question, I kind of think they had a blind spot where they're like so much of college football fan. And I'm a huge college football fan, but I like to call it balls and strikes to use a baseball terminology there. But it was interesting for me to like hear that question. It's like, you're a sports commentator. How do you not know why? That there's more people that want to watch the Super Bowl than the college football national championship game. And I figured that we could talk about that to start this podcast off.
Sounds good.
All right. So he was kind of confused as to like, why would 100 million more people? And I think he's dead set on this idea that like they're all football fans that watch the Super Bowl, and they're all football fans that watch the college football national championship game. But that's not the case. The Super Bowl is watched by a lot of people that don't particularly care about the game. Were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, like you said, a lot of people watch the game. A lot of people watch the game for commercials, so it's a family thing. Everybody gets to have parties, and it's a social gathering that everybody loves. One thing that I don't understand is more so because I do like the main sports programs that we have. But just to flip this for a second,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, what's the number one? What is the number one sport apparently in the world? Apparently, it's soccer. Now, I wouldn't know that because I don't watch soccer. I don't like soccer. I know the point is football, but that's the point that I'm making. Like, I had no idea that the number one sport in the world was like soccer.
Yeah, well, that's
the
an
point.
accessible, sport by a lot of countries, especially countries that are stricken by poverty and all that stuff. But the point that I was going to make, and I think this is a pretty other than kind of like what you were saying before, where the Super Bowl is in the cultural zeitgeist of the United States of America. You watch it not even necessarily for the game. There's a lot of people out there that watch the Super Bowl, not necessarily for the game, but for the commercials, for the halftime show, for the experience of just being there at a Super Bowl party. And it's because the Super Bowl is a part of Americana, whereas college football is a regional sport, and that's a lot of things, and that's a lot of sports. Like hockey is a regional sport; it's bigger in Minnesota and like the Rust Belt and like the Northeast, like in Vermont and Boston and all that and all those places, and with football in general, and with college football, it's in the South. It's in like Texas, Alabama, Florida. Yeah, it's huge down there. It's a religion down there, and to an extent, it's also the same way in the Rust Belt.
What's the? I believe they made movies and stuff about this. What is it, Friday Night Lights?
Friday Night Lights.
That's I know it's high school. It's high school, correct?
It's high school.
It's like religion for those people.
It's a huge deal. And then exactly. It's high school football, but also at the same time, that's just a check down because it's a microcosm all the way down to your individual town. So you can have a high school, and you're like, oh, I hope really beat the high school that's in the town over or whatever. For college football, it's really about that particular area. So maybe you went to, or maybe you're just like a Longhorns fan, and you really want to beat the Texas A&M, Aggies. That's a part of, the dichotomy, which like you're split between these certain schools and all that stuff. And there's so many teams. Like there's 130 plus teams in major college football, and like not particularly major, but in D1 college football. In the NFL, there's only 32 teams, I believe. So you're only down to, and some states don't even have teams. So like if you are like the more curious one is that in Alaska, like the team is the Seattle Seahawks because it's the closest one to the area.
Who's got what is North Dakota and South Dakota? Who do they root for?
I think I've seen these maps so many times.
For pro, I mean,
Yeah, I think it shifts depending on who's good. But you got me on that.
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I was just curious if you knew.
Yeah, no, because I've noticed the Alaska one. Hawaii, was it the 49ers? I'm speaking out of my ass on that one.
Yeah.
But yes, in my opinion, if you have that question and if you don't really understand why someone wouldn't watch the college football national championship game but would watch the Super Bowl, then I don't think you really understand the cultural significance of the Super Bowl. Now, you can ask the question, how can college football do that? But that's a really heavy question because of the difference in the amount of teams in both of those sports. So, I mean, in those levels of the same sport. So like 130 teams. How am I supposed to care as a Navy fan if Notre Dame and Ohio State are playing in the national championship game? It's the same basic principle of, like, why did 22 around that area million people watch the national championship game in college football? Well, it's Notre Dame and Ohio State. That's one particular area. That's that Rust Belt area of the country. Does Alabama care? Does Florida care? Does Texas care? That's not any of those teams. And it's also not capturing the major metropolitan areas in this country, because the Northeast, where we live, doesn't really give a shit about college football. Chicago could care about college football, but it's kind of in between a whole lot of major programs like Notre Dame, like Ohio State, like Minnesota, like a bunch of programs that are up there. And then LA only really gives a shit about college football if USC is good, and USC was not good.
Yeah.
So run into a situation where the major metropolitan areas will always lean towards the NFL, and all points in between, honestly, because 122 something million people watch the Super Bowl for the experience. But you're talking about college football that is not necessarily a national experience.
I would say that I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but I would say Penn State probably would be somewhere in our area, because I know a lot of people from our area do go to school there. So I would assume that Penn State would probably be fit into the what you said before about our area.
But Penn State is also a part of that because it's, in the middle of Pennsylvania. So it's in that Rust Belt area.
I would assume that Syracuse probably fits into that as well. Same.
The interesting thing about that, though, is that Notre Dame has a large imprint in our area. They're called Subway alums. A lot of people who did not necessarily go to Notre Dame, but they root for Notre Dame because Notre Dame has always had that contract with NBC. So they were always on nationally. I remember when I was a kid, being a Navy fan, I only got access to two games. It was the Army-Navy game, which is always telecast on either ABC or CBS or something like that. And then the NBC game, which would be, because NBC carried the home games, I believe, for Notre Dame, Navy and Notre Dame if it was at South Bend. So when you're on a national TV channel like that, like NBC, you have a lot of people in this area that became Notre Dame fans. So even this area that has a strong inclination for Notre Dame, and they were in the national championship game, still didn't turn out for that game. So that's actually kind of more of an indictment on, and I'm a college football fan. I will always admit I love college football more than the NFL. It's an indictment on college football in its regionality. Like, why would you want to watch the college football playoff? Like, unless you're a nerd like me and you want to watch college football all the fucking time.
I mean, you're sorry, excuse me. You're right. But I think why one of the reasons why I think people don't is because watching like, let's say, the NFL for years, you get to know your players, you know who they are. Whenever you're watching college, like, you only see your players for, I don't know, let's say 4 years. If you have 4 years.
Yeah, you used to have 4 years of those players, maybe 3, because you traditionally didn't play as a freshman.
Good players going to leave in 2.
And that brings us to that whole NIL discussion that we were kind of in. Now that, like, you've had with NIL and with the transfer portal, you kind of have unlimited cap, not even a salary cap, it's just unlimited spending. and unlimited free agency in college football. So like you think you have a good player, and then all of a sudden he's like, all right, well, I'm going to Alabama. It's like Army had a what's his name? Kanye Odo. He had a whoever. I'm
Kanye. You said Kanye. It's him.
Yeah, it's Kanye Adaubo or whatever his name was. But he went from Army, which has its own kind of like the service academies have their own kind of like regulations of what you can and can't do. Like after your sophomore year, if you want to leave the academy, you have to actually pay back the money.
Wow.
Yeah. Because you're it's not free to go to the service academy, so you have to pay back what you owe them, because it was supposed to be essentially a free ride, and then you go there and then you serve 6-7 years in one of the services. And with this though, with NIL and all that stuff, it's like, all right, well, I can just leave and potentially pay you back anyway. And people just jump from Army, Navy, Air Force just like that.
Are each one of those? So if you enter the Navy, that this much money if you leave. Does it get transferred to like the Army where you have the same amount, or do you have any idea? I'm just curious. I didn't know this was a thing.
It's a thing. I don't know if it's the same amount, because all three of the academies
Services.
have their own their own freaking little things, because sometimes Navy's a little bit more they're a little bit more harsh than Army. Sometimes Army's a little bit more harsh than Navy. Sometimes Air Force is harsher than both of them. But you kind of it just depends. I guess on that situation where like it depends on like the superintendent who's just trying to like lay the hammer down. It's like, no, you can't leave.
I did not know that was a thing. I mean, that makes sense though. I mean, especially like obviously you're signing up to do a not a tour, but you're signing up for your service for your country.
Well, yeah, you're signing up, but you're also signing up to be an officer in one of the military, one of those branches of the military, and so they kind of want you to like, hey, you're not here to be a football player. So, but that's probably the most extreme of those examples, where it's just like, but if you're if you're like, we talked about this briefly, he declared for the NFL draft since then, but like Quinn Ewers was rumored to be getting a $6 million package from Notre Dame, and then that didn't happen. He declared for the NFL draft and all that stuff. But if you can just get a certain amount of money, and you're like, hey, if you leave Texas, you can come here to Notre Dame, be our starting quarterback, and we'll pay you $6 million. So there's no loyalty in college football anymore. I don't know if that's exactly. I have seen comments from sports fans that kind of lean towards that, but in the generality of like in the scope of football, there's more people that care about the NFL because there's more people that live in urban areas like New York City, LA, Chicago, this, that, and the other thing, and they all have teams. And in almost all of those cases, except for Chicago, they have multiple, football teams. So you're already kind of like in the scope of it. And also, I think another interesting point of this too is that why does the NFL get better ratings in general than college football? It's like you can predict when your team is on. If you don't even pay attention to when the schedule is, it's like, well, they're either on at 1, 4, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And if you're wrong, they're either on a Thursday or a Monday.
So one thing that I was going to say before is that, and you kind of brought it up again. So with the Super Bowl, I know when I was a kid, and I'm sure this happens in every household, probably with college for people back, like let's say in Texas, or all those big gamers that really love college. I know whenever I was a kid, I'm sure this happened with you. I know another friend, same thing. When we were kids, like when the Super Bowl was on, we were going with the family to our friend's house, to their friend's house. They were having a big old party. I remember a kid watching all the Super Bowls, and not even watching the Super Bowls, going downstairs and playing Tecmo Super Bowl while our families were sitting down watching the game. But that probably happens with college, but you just don't know it because we don't do that. Well, I never really did that.
Well, we don't do that in the Northeast because it's in the same vein where the Super Bowl is an event.
Yep.
College football
it's like a holiday.
national championship game, first of all, is kind of new. It's been within the last 20 to 30 years that they even had a national championship game to begin with. So it's kind of like, it's unfair to college football to even compare the two. It's like, why are 122 million people watching the Super Bowl, which, as we've already established, is a cultural thing in the United States? It's not even, and also it's a global thing. I didn't even bring up that. It's like it's on in multiple fucking countries. But even if it's 122 million people in just the United States of America, if we just leave it at that, it is a part of Americana to watch the Super Bowl, even if you don't care. Even if you just want both of those, even if you want a meteor to hit the fucking stadium, you're still watching the Super Bowl because there's nothing else on.
That's how I felt about this one.
Yeah,
honestly.
And honestly, like at halftime, I think the Chiefs wanted that meteor to hit too. That was not a good Super Bowl. But even that can even be the thing. Like, I remember watching that Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs, and the Eagles were just absolutely drumming them. And I'm like, the college football national championship game was a better game. And that was kind of like, it wasn't a blowout, but it was like Ohio State took control and just kind of like bloodlet the game out. And like Notre Dame tried to march back and make it into a game, and they did a better job of the Chiefs doing it. But also at the same time, it's comparing, it's not apples and oranges because it's the same sport, but it's like one sport has been trying to get into the zeitgeist, but it's too regional to get into the zeitgeist. Whereas the Super Bowl has already been established for, like, when was that established? Like 1968, right off the top of my head, I want to say.
I would say a little earlier than that, but...
Yeah, it's probably right.
Yeah, but yeah.
But like, yeah. So...
to make it a national, like...
But like,
yeah.
But then too, is like I saw this graphic too for the Super Bowl where it's just like, oh well, for the first Super Bowl, like the ticket prices were like $14 or something like that, so something super cheap. Like even correcting for inflation, it's more expensive than you think for that time frame. And then you see the ticket prices for today. It's like, oh, you ruined the game. This is how you ruined everything.
Yeah. Only the top notch tier of people can go to these things.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they fill the seats. I didn't know that many people had that much money in this country.
Well, it's also because it is such an experience. Like if you're an Eagles fan, like I don't know, I think that's probably why you heard so many boos for Taylor Swift and all that stuff. I think more Eagles fans packed in that stadium because they were like, this is an experience for us. Whereas Chiefs fans are like, yeah, this is third straight Super Bowl. Like, maybe we'll go, maybe we won't go. It's kind of expensive. So like it becomes sort of like that kind of thing where, you know, it's not that big of an event anymore because you go to so many of these Super Bowls, kind of like probably how Boston fans felt with the Patriots. It's like, oh yeah, you're expected to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, and everyone expected, like you said, everyone expected the Chiefs to win because that was probably written in the script with the NFL, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And also, before I forget, I just wanted to say, go Birds for Tori. She does love the Birds, and honestly, I don't like the Eagles, but I am glad that they won.
Yeah,
I don't like Mahomes, and watching the Eagles defense tear him up was fantastic. We watched the first two quarters together, and Eagles tore him up.
Yeah, all they had to do was just rush their front four. No blitzes.
Yeah,
that was a completely dominant.
Yeah, who saw that coming? I did not.
I didn't. And also, but I have the same mentality that is like the Ric Flair quote: "To be the man, you got to beat the man." So I don't expect a team to beat the Chiefs until they actually beat the Chiefs. The same way that I felt with the Patriots, same way that I felt with the dominant teams beforehand in other sports. Like, oh hey, like who's gonna beat the Red Wings in hockey? Like back in the '90s. Like, oh well, I don't know. Maybe the Avalanche. That's about it.
That was your coordinator that took him out. What was his name? Nick.
That was Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
And I remember pointing that out to you. I was like, why does that name seem so familiar to me? And then it's like, oh, he was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins last season.
Did he really pull a trigger on that one, man? He really killed it, honestly. Yeah. He did such a good job.
He was also,
sorry, Dan.
He was a good defensive coordinator for the Dolphins. I think it was just like, listen, personnel makes a difference.
Yeah.
If you can just rush four guys and they can disrupt arguably the best quarterback in the league right now for the whole game, make him run for his life. The team that was, back-to-back Super Bowl champions going for a three-peat completely just ruin their day. It makes your job easier as a defensive coordinator, but he drew up like pretty much the perfect plan.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles' offense wasn't anything to sneeze at. But like I said, I don't like the Eagles, and I definitely don't like their head coach. He has a punchable face. But I'd rather give the credit to the defense because I don't remember. I think I saw something about the Buccaneers really kind of raping Mahomes.
Yeah.
And here we are. And the Eagles really did that. Like you said, with that blitzing, and he didn't even scramble. I mean, he had a lot of yards passing, but not raping. You know what I mean.
But I want to bring it back because I want your opinion on this, because I did a whole bunch of, pontificating on the subject of, well, why do so many people, like, I think you agree with some of my points. Do you think I'm off base on anything? Like, why do so many people watch the Super Bowl? And why don't they watch the college football national championship game?
I'm not really sure how exactly to explain that. Like I said, I feel like it's been kind of not pushed on people, but like it's kind of like American pastime type thing, like how baseball is like America's pastime, but like the Super Bowl is kind of like that. It's that
the NFL is America's pastime now. It really is.
It really is. Sundays are for football.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, Saturdays in my mind are not for football, but that doesn't mean that they're not.
Yeah.
It's just to me, but college, like we just discussed, college just doesn't seem like it has the uproar and the reach, because it just doesn't. And also, and then the point that I'm trying to make is more so like maybe it has to do with the fact that like it is college players, even though they are getting a lot better, what it seems like, but you're only seeing your players for so long, and then they get to go wherever they want. To me, I don't know. I'm not sure if I have the answer to that, which is it's a tough question. But it just seems like the Super Bowl has always been there. It's like old reliable, I guess, if you will. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to say it.
But like, I think the best way to phrase it is that the Super Bowl is not for football fans.
Yeah,
it can be for some football fans. Like you can hear like Bill Burr, who I'm pretty sure you enjoy some of his comedy. Yeah. I do as well. But like he won't go to Super Bowl parties because Super Bowl parties are not about the game.
True.
Like we were talking off mic and you were like, I just want to watch the rest of this game and not be disturbed. I watched the game and it was really at a different place in the second half, and it was pretty it was a quieter environment, as I'll say. But
I just wanted a little bit more out of it. That's how I felt whenever I decided to change up my scenario whenever I was watching the game. I just wanted to see if I could get a little bit more out of this game.
Yeah.
And that's what I decided to do. And I feel like I did, even though the game was a blowout.
Yeah.
But what were you saying?
But that's even the thing. Like, I'll change up what I was about to say, because that's the thing about the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter if it's a blowout.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Like I remember being a kid. And it was the 1994-1995 Super Bowl between the San Diego Chargers and the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
It was the first and only Super Bowl that Steve Young won as the quarterback of the 49ers. That was an absolute drubbing. And I watched that game. I watched that game too. And at halftime, I was like, screw this game. And I turned on my little Game Gear and started playing Sonic because I was just like, this game's over. Uh-huh. And I was just like, I watched the Chargers beat my Dolphins on a heartbreaking field goal that Pete Stoyanovich missed. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm here. All of my aunts and my uncles are here. Like, we're having a party. And I'm like, I don't care about this game anymore.
Sonic.
There's nothing for me to do. Yeah. Sega. And that is the thing that drives all of, like, if you don't understand that the Super Bowl isn't actually about football.
It's a gathering.
Should you be commenting on sports? Do you understand culture? Do you understand sports? It's not about the game. We were having a whole conversation with your lady about the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar and how the NFL is such a corporate entity that it can draw in some people with the game, you and I. It can draw some people in with the commercials. Drawing like the nerds, like, oh, they're gonna do like a they did it the first commercial, the trailer for the next Jurassic World movie. I'm sure no one is excited about it.
Oh, it's like a remake or something, right? A reboot, I believe.
Yeah, because now they got Scarlett Johansson in it instead of Chris Pratt. And then you bring in the halftime show, and that draws in another group of people. So it's not so much about the game. I know I keep saying it. but it's the driving point of the thesis. If you are wondering why people watch the Super Bowl and don't watch college football, one is an event. It's a part of the calendar. It's so much of a part of the zeitgeist that people want the day after to be a holiday or to move the game to be, the Sunday before President's Day. No one is petitioning that for college football.
True. If they kept college football like their championship game, and the hoopla finally started getting up a little higher for it.
Yeah.
If they kept that on a Saturday, I think a lot more people would watch it, because Sunday fucking Super Bowl at like 6:00 starting at like 6:45 is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Everyone has work on Monday.
Yeah. That's an important part of it too. But I had this discussion with a lot of people at the party that you threw for the Super Bowl, and the reason I believe that they do it, and I think this is the actual reason, but it's me spitballing. Game starts at 6:45 because of the time differences. So it's like 3:45 on the West Coast, and I think that's a 5-hour difference with Hawaii. So you want Hawaii to watch. You want Alaska to watch. The rest of the world. Screw them.
What's it like watching the Super Bowl at like 1:00 on the Pacific Coast?
Oh, I'm sure it's a blast.
I don't know.
Hawaii?
You're right.
Oh my goodness gracious! That's
honestly,
first
I thought it was going to suck, but then again, you're watching the Super Bowl at 1:00 in the afternoon. Like, I think that would be kind of cool.
That would be probably the best. Now I want to go to a Super Bowl.
I've actually never thought about it until right now.
Yeah.
But maybe we watch the Super Bowl in California next year.
Yeah. Well, that's 3:00. So we go to Hawaii for the 1:00 start time.
I'm fine with 3:00, Dan.
But you're sober by the time it's time to go to sleep, and you're not hungover in the morning.
This sounds very nice.
Yeah. And if anybody from Hawaii or Alaska watches this, please let us know how it goes in your states.
Yeah, help us.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a lot better. Or do you just get drunker? Or do you not care about the Super Bowl because you're farther away from
Actually, I have a friend who used to live in Alaska. I'm curious how he used to watch the Super Bowl. I got to ask him. My friend Dante. Sorry, Dante, I shouted you out there, but I need to know.
Yeah, now you can do some investigative journalism there.
Now we're talking about it. I'm really curious about this.
All right, so I think we've kind of, unless you have anything else to add, Justin?
No, I think I hit my points more so about, it's an event. It's an event that it's a gathering. It's almost like a holiday, which is weird, but it's a Super Bowl because you can't do that for the World Series because there's multiple games.
Yes.
That's another point. Like and like I said, with college, it's more so like it's dedication. I feel like college is more dedication. The Super Bowl is just, all right, fuck it, we're winging it here. We're doing it.
That's actually a good point, too, because you can be a fan of an NFL team and have no affiliation, really, other than that's what I like. I'm a Dolphins fan. I've been to Miami once. What is my affiliation to that team? I like their colors. I like that fact that, like, Dan Marino was the quarterback, and he was good back when I was a kid. There's no affiliation to that. You can not have that. Most of the time, if you're a college football fan, you went to that school or...
Amamato. What is that? The Amamato?
Alma mater.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I couldn't say it.
Yeah. No worries. I couldn't say a bunch of things at the beginning of this podcast as well. But yeah, it's because it's more tribal to be in college football, because if you went to, let's say, Notre Dame,
you're bleeding Notre Dame blood.
Freaking green and gold. That is a part of your essence. You went there as a young man or woman and grew up in that school. You didn't grow, like, you could theoretically grow up being a Dolphins fan, Jets fan, Giants fan, Bills fan, whatever. But you picked that team because either it was grafted onto you because you grew up in the area, like in our area, be Jets or Giants or Eagles. Or you were like me. And I'm like, that guy is really good. I'm going to root for him. And then you're a Dolphins fan. You regret all of your life's decisions for 40 years.
So Super Bowl definitely comes down to, we'll call it, I guess we'll use the first one, family, fun. It's almost like a holiday.
Festivities.
A lot of good food usually. Yeah. You're drinking. The other thing is now that gambling is kind of legal mostly. There's definitely a lot of gambling. A lot of gambling happening at Super Bowl.
The micro gambling that happens in the Super Bowl.
Yes, a lot of people have let's call it skin in the game.
Yeah,
and skin in the game is fun, and that's why people watch. But I would love to see people do that. I would do it. for a college game, I would put a little skin in the game if it could.
But also at the same time, I think you can still do that with college football, because if you can micro gamble on the Super Bowl, it's that difference between this is a slice of this country, of this culture. Whereas the national championship game in college football, it's new, it doesn't have the legs, it's not as established, and that's kind of like the end of it. You can get like a trailer or two for the national championship game, but it's happening on a Monday night, as you've already established. Like, if it was on a Saturday night, infinitely better. But also at the same time, if you're on, like, I have my own grievances with Saturday night sporting events, because the way that I put it to pretty much anybody that I'm not ashamed to say this to, 100% of the population on Saturday nights they're trying to get laid, or they're actively getting laid. So I think that's like, if you go for Monday nights, it's like, well, we'll get more viewership because people are home.
Yeah, that's valid.
So I think it would be, if you could try to, and you can't, if you're college football, you can't slither your way into Sundays, and then you only have so much time too, because when we were at a local bar, and I wanted to watch, what was it, the first round of the college football playoff. And I think the first game was SMU and Penn State. But there was NFL games on at the same time. Well, what do you think is going to happen, especially in this area?
Oh, the playoff time, yeah. Yep.
You're gonna get decked by the NFL, because it's an entity that I forget what movie it came from, but it's like, this is an entity that beat the church on Sundays. Do you not think that they've got power?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's probably why football starts at 1 o'clock and not 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Church.
And also, like, I think that was a point I was about to make before we kind of sign off this, because we got one more thing to talk about. Football is pretty predictable when it comes on. It's 1, 4, or 8. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much when it comes on, and it's always Sunday. I know there's Thursday games and Monday games, and then sometimes Saturday games.
I just thought of something. Isn't NASCAR on Sundays?
Oh, I know nothing of NASCAR.
I don't know. I don't know shit about NASCAR, but I'm pretty sure it comes on.
I'm pretty sure
might
it's
be
on Sunday.
Sundays, but I think it might.
But I think it's after.
Sorry, viewer. Like, I don't know.
I think for the most part, it's after football's done. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought maybe they beat. I thought they maybe beat the church too, but I wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know shit from Shinola about NASCAR. I've gone to one NASCAR race in my life.
Never really went. So it might be fun. It's just a lot of head jerking.
It's. Well, I mean, depending on where you're sitting, it's not a whole lot of that, but it's a lot of fumes.
Yeah, I hear Formula One's good. I have a couple people who really like friends who really like Formula One, but that's neither here nor there.
So from the Super Bowl to another game that's got a lot of contention around it this is every single sport, the All-Star Game. Now, I have a thesis for you, my friend, and I know now as we record this, we're in between awesome game between Finland and Sweden in the Four Nations Faceoff, and later on tonight, probably have to cut this out when I clip this, the U.S. Canada game.
Hacky.
I have a thesis for you, my friend. I think the NHL has solved its All-Star Game problem with this, because you were even saying it to me. And I know you're not really a big international hockey fan like me, where I have USA hockey jerseys and you're a Devils fan.
Yeah.
But you like hockey. The All-Star Game, everyone's just too afraid to get hurt. It's a meaningless exhibition. I have one memory of the NHL All-Star Game, and it's when Owen Nolan pointed, he called a shot against Dominik Hasek, and he scored, and that's it. That's all I can remember of the All-Star Game. I've watched a lot of NHL All-Star Games, and they're all just like, that happened. For the Four Nations Faceoff, they've kind of figured it out, where we can get, maybe not like every single best player, but you can fill out a dream team for Canada, a dream team for the United States. You can get the best players from Sweden, and unfortunately for Finland, a lot of their defensemen got hurt, but you get the best Finnish players. You can assemble all of these guys, and since nationalism is kind of a big thing in hockey, you can get them all to actually care, because the players actually want to go to the Olympics every time that happens. Then the NHL's like, no, you can't do that because you'll get hurt, and the owners don't want to see that happen. In this Four Nations Face-Off, I sent you a text after that. What was that? Canada-Sweden game? Mm-hmm. This is better than every All-Star game.
Yeah. So I went to bed early that night. I'm not gonna lie, I did not watch that game. But in the morning, I put the sports show on ESPN like I always do, Sports Center, and Sidney Crosby killed it.
Yeah.
Now that's a 37-year-old player who captain of Canada. His no-look pass in that first goal that was only a few minutes in was like insane. Like.
Yeah.
Wow.
No look.
Wow.
I was actually even like when I saw that pass, I'm like, is he offside now? But like with the offside rule in hockey, it was like, oh, if I just get out of the zone real quick. No, that was incredible. I remember watching.
No. I'm sorry. You're thinking of that was the overtime goal.
Now,
I'm talking about
the Nathan McKinnon goal.
The first goal of the game. It was like 4 minutes, 2 minutes in. He had a turnaround behind the back, like no looker, like right in front of the goal. How the defenseman was already going down. It just squeaked right by him and boop right in.
If you blinked, you missed that play.
That was perfect hockey. Yeah. Like you can't script that.
But also at the same time, look at that power play unit. You have Nathan McKinnon who scored the goal, and the assists are from Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. You can put together that kind of all-star lineup with Canada. Now, Canada is in the situation where I don't necessarily trust their goaltending, but their starting goaltender is Jordan Binnington, who has won a Stanley Cup in his past. That was a while ago, that 2019 season against the Boston Bruins. But you can really assemble some dream teams, and instead of it just being one of these, situations where they're like, all right, it's an all-star game, I don't care. It's a national pride thing. Like the United States is getting booed because they're playing a game in Montreal against Finland, and I'm like, well, now we give a shit.
Yeah.
Now we really want to try. And that speaks to me because now, and it speaks to the players as well, because now they're throwing hits. Freaking
lots of hits. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but somebody just got hurt.
Shea Theodore.
Yeah.
I think I can't say for certain, but I think it was a wrist injury.
But
they pulled him.
So this is showing that the players they really are playing hard. They're giving a shit.
Yeah.
Which honestly is super cool because anytime you ever watch any kind of all-star or whatever, it's, what are we doing here? This is great. Like, why am I even watching this? Most people don't because it's full of shit. We're watching the skills competitions instead of full-on in-your-face, hitting you hard, scoring goals, whatever, and watching all the fun.
And the skills competitions have been the best part of all of those all-star games, like the home run derby, MLB all-star game, 3-point or slam dunk contest, depending on
always
the era.
Fun, yeah.
And then the NHL skills competition was always better than the All-Star game in general. So you had those things, but that was kind of like the only thing that the players actually cared about because it was like an individual thing. Like, oh, I went 4 for 4 in the shooting contest or whatever. In this, it's just a sense of like, oh, we can actually play for something, even if it doesn't necessarily matter.
I was just about to ask you, like, so with this Four Nation deal, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Except for the players that can't play, like Russia, or let's just say Ovechkin, and
all
also
the Russian players.
All the Russian players. You said Bobrovsky can't play, which is crazy to me. But anyway,
that would be such a good Russian team, by the way.
I'm assuming next year's Olympics is going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
considering
what I've been seeing. Like the ban does go away for next year for the Olympics, Russia has a really good chance.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be them. Like I don't want to jinx the United States because it's been a long, long time since the United States has won a gold medal in the Olympics. 1980, Miracle on Ice, and then they beat Finland in the gold medal game. Those two countries have the best goaltending. Canada's probably got the best forward core, but like probably the two most complete teams would be Russia and the United States.
Yeah.
So that would be so good, so interesting.
Well, so what is I guess what is it? Just like top pride for winning the Four Nations? Like it's probably a trophy, but it's just like we won.
Yeah,
we won.
Well, because I think a lot of the pride comes from like a lot of these countries develop their players. Like the United States has developmental programs, so they start you off when you're like a kid, like 14, 15 years old. They develop you. You play in a program, and then you're playing against college hockey programs, like at like kind of a young age. Like
sorry to interrupt you, but I've actually seen the talent, some of the talent come up, and it's really freaking hard to get into anywhere close to the NHL.
Yeah.
When you think you know someone who's like really good, there's someone even better.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. But go on.
Yeah. Well, all these countries develop, like Canada has a developmental program. All these countries lean into developing their own talent. And so that kind of like, that's where you cut your teeth as a hockey player. It's like representing your country. And then like that sticks with you. And then all of these players like Canada, United States, Finland, Sweden, Russia, all that. There's international tournaments every single year. There's the men's world championship. And all of these guys, most of these guys have played in the World Junior Championship. I talked about that the last time we had one of these podcasts. They all
boy, do you love it.
What's that?
Boy, do you love it.
Oh, so much of this. So much of this I absolutely
Loves the hockey.
adore.
The hacky.
And all these players, whenever they do a collective bargaining negotiation, they want to play in the Olympics. They want to rep their country. They want to do it because other than the Stanley Cup, a gold medal in the Olympics is the prize in hockey. And it's like one of the greatest moments in the history of sports in this country was when the United States beat the Soviet Union. That's like, it's a historical moment. It's not like a huge historical moment. Like you can't compare it to like JFK being assassinated, but it was a huge lift in a time where, this country was pretty low. It's so you can be in that scenario where you kind of lift up a program because the United States in 1980 lifted up a program that kind of fostered in the 1996 World Cup of Hockey USA team that beat Canada, and people really didn't expect that. And then that team kind of was the influence on kind of the state of USA hockey is right now. So you have a whole lot of influence on that. So everyone is really proud to be a part of their country and represent their country in hockey. And that's why they all like, no, fuck it. I don't care if I get hurt. I'm going to smash you into the boards in the Four Nations Faceoff. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help your seeding in the Olympics. It's not like, it's just going to be like, yeah, all right. We didn't do a World Cup of Hockey since like 2016.
And the only thing that sucks about it is that your bosses are thinking like, this is really going to affect how you play for me. Like this isn't going to affect your paycheck, but I'm not going to be happy if you get hurt.
Yeah.
Guess what? Fuck you.
Yeah. At that point, it's kind of like that. The thing that everyone has to love about hockey. If you think nobody cares about hockey, watch it.
It's good. I mean, it's real good.
They have so much it's the antithesis of like everyone that complains about how I'll just pick on the NBA, how it's just like load management, no one cares, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, it's an all-star game, no one cares. With the NHL or NHL players or hockey players just in general, if they can just freaking just put on the sweater, like, oh, I'm wearing the USA colors, or I'm wearing, the shield of Finland, I'm wearing the leaf of Canada, they give so much of a fuck. And they just want to smash the other guy in just for the national pride.
That's legit love of the game.
Yeah, it's love of pride, but it's also a love of country, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But my question to you is, one, do you think that this is the actual solution to the All-Star Game problem?
So, it's a good question. I'm not sure. More so because, like I said, you have a lot of other players that probably didn't play in this Four Nations thing. More so because they are worried about like not being able to win the Stanley Cup with their team.
Quinn Hughes can't play because he'd probably be the best player on USA in terms of being a defenseman, and he can't play because it's like, all right, he's a little banged up, and Vancouver wants to make a run.
That's so you got that. Which is upsetting because you always want, like, with something like this, the best of the best. But I understand everyone has their own decision on why can't they, will they take this time off to, like, visit with family since they can't play, which is probably nice, too, because I think it's like 2 weeks or something, right?
Yeah, it's like 10 days.
Something. Like that's a nice chunk of change.
February 12th to the 22nd or something like that, where the break is.
But I don't know if this is the solution. Do I want it to be the solution? Absolutely. If there was a way to get these players because I do like the skills competition. That is a hell of a lot of fun. The hardest shot, all the things, like a lot of fun. If they can figure out a way this, and I know that you were talking about a way how they can do this after the season, I believe is what you said.
I would do it. So the thesis that I threw out to you was, first of all, I think the NHL season is way too long, so I would reduce it down to 66 games. but I would also have the World Cup of Hockey every even year that you don't have an Olympic year. So Olympics happen next year. So I believe the Winter Olympics happen next year. I believe.
Yep.
And so you have the World Cup of Hockey in like 2028, something like that. And then you have these four nation face-off tournaments. You have that at every even odd year. So like 27, 29, that. So you always have the international games going on. I would also expand it to where it's not four, because Russia has so many good players. So I wouldn't want them involved, and I wouldn't want the Czech Republic involved. They want to be called Czechia now, but I'm old, so it's always be the Czech Republic to me. You include those 6 nations, and you have a basic tournament there, and then you play it.
I just assume Yager will probably continue to play in one of those, right?
Or coach.
Yeah, no, he's going to be playing. You know that. He's going to buy the team, figure out how to get on it.
But you have, and also I'm a bigger fan of having the games happen before the NHL season, because that's what I grew up watching. Like the 1996 World Cup of Hockey was happening in like, I think late August, early September, and then it went right into kind of like training camp. And I think the last World Cup of Hockey did not like how they organized it, where they had like, well, if you're under 24, you'll be on the North America team. It's like, no, just give me basic nations. Don't give me this amalgam of, because if you lose access to like some of your best young players, like I think Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid had to play on that North American team. It's like, no, they should be on Team USA and Team Canada. Why are you losing those access to those players? Because they're too young? Screw that.
Yeah, but they're like the best.
Yeah. So I would have that happen before the season, because I think that's because the only reason I think you shut down the NHL season is for the Olympics, because it's just
that makes sense
when the Olympics happen.
Makes sense.
But shutting it down for these 10 days, it's essentially a bye week for everyone else.
Recouping, family time.
Yeah, family time. But the one change, if you were like, as I said before, like 2027, 2029, you got to include Russia.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as you're like, all right, we're done fake punishing them for an invasion that their country did, but they didn't do because they're hockey players, you let them play. Because I think I already said, I don't know if I said this on the podcast or if I just said it to you, but Brodsky and Vasilevsky as the goaltenders would give the United States a run for its money in terms of being the best goaltending duo in an international tournament. So I absolutely think Russia deserves to play, and also the Czech Republic. I don't know if they could fill out an entire roster of players, but also at the same time, if you're like a prospect and you're about to like get drafted or something like that, throw the kids in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the goaltender for, I believe it was Finland. What is he, 8-23 going in, and he's playing for Finland?
Oh,
I believe that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I can't. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know if that's. I don't think that was. Well, that might have been UC Soros, because the Nashville Predators are not.
I think it was him, honestly, and I could have those statistics wrong a little bit, but he's not doing great. But he's still in there, and I appreciate that about him.
Well, they also swapped out the goaltender for the past game that we were watching earlier today. But UC Soros played a relatively good game against the United States until the third period, where they put Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk together with Jack Eichel, and that line just started tearing things up.
Well, my point being that like you said about the kids, like let the kids play. Like you said, if Russia doesn't have enough players, get your top prospects in there, because that's how you're supposed to do it anyway.
Yeah, or you can
let them mingle in with the big boys, and let's see what happens. Because then, guess what? That's how magic happens.
Yeah. Or you can just bring in a few guys that aren't on NHL rosters and give them a chance to shine.
It's peanut butter jelly time, baby.
All right. So you're not confident that this is the solution to the All-Star Game problem, but
I like the idea of it. It's fantastic as we're going now. I mean, we're halfway through almost.
Yeah, we've got a couple games on Monday. We've got
big game tonight.
Yeah, big game tonight as we record
Biggest
this.
game tonight.
Yeah. And then championship game the next following Thursday. So, I personally love it. I think it is the solution because it gives everyone something to care about. Like, I walked into a bar that we met up earlier today in this jersey, and people were like, USA is going to do it. Would anybody give a shit if I walked in, if this wasn't happening, and I just showed up in a USA hockey jersey randomly. No, they were like, why is that guy in a hockey jersey?
Why is that guy wearing a Shorzy jersey?
Yeah. Now, a question I have for you, because you know more about these sports than I do. But I think, because like, this is not a solution for the NFL. It's not.
Wait. I'm sorry. I have one question before you get into this, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely.
Do you think Ovechkin is going to beat Gretzky's record?
Oh.
I'm sorry. I know it's a hockey thing. We're on hockey.
No.
I was going to say it before, but I need to know.
As long as he sticks around long enough and his game doesn't absolutely go to shit, yeah, he's going to beat it because he's just got time.
16 goals, I think, right?
Yeah, like under 20 at this point.
Yeah.
So he's.
Did you ever think that this would ever happen? Because, like, as we were kids looking at this, like, monumental goal thing that this master of hockey ever, like, set, you look at it like, no one's ever going to beat this. And now here we are. I've never in my mind would have ever thought this could happen. Did you?
No, because I remember being a kid and playing, like, Sega Genesis and playing, like, NHL 95, 96, 97, and be like, wow, this is so much work to try to beat Gretzky. Not even just Gretzky's total goal record, but just his in-season record of, like, what was it, like 93 goals or something like that? The amount of goals you have to score in a single season is preposterous. So I really didn't, but, like, you got to give credit to Ovechkin for not only being so skilled, but so skilled for so long. Because he's been able to score 50 goals, 40 goals, 30 goals for so long, where it's like, all right, he's about to break the single greatest offensive player in the history of the National Hockey League's goal scoring record. Now, no one's gonna ever touch that point fucking record.
Okay, that was about that. So, thank you for saying that, because that my next question was going to be like, so we call him the Great One, and now here we are with the. But I didn't know where his assists were at and his points.
Yeah.
So
he was always a sniper.
I'm not saying he's not the Great One, because he's the fucking Great One.
Well, Alexander Ovechkin was initially called Alexander the Great. So he's proven that.
Wow, this is really making a whole lot of sense here. I love it. This is coming around full circle. I love it.
No, it was like him and Crosby, completely worth the price of admission. Now, if you're a Devils fan or a Flyers fan, you hated every single second of it. But no, those guys were legit generational talent. Like, I don't know if Crosby is in the same vein as Gretzky or Lemieux, but he's close to it.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. And
I hate to admit that as a Devils fan. Hate to admit that, but I mean, talent is talent.
But also Crosby has more longevity than Lemieux, and I have yet to see him hit an absolute iceberg like Gretzky did with the Rangers. So, I mean, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Maybe I'm just showing my, like, oh no, Crosby, fuck him. Like from 20 years in the National Hockey League, he's been legit pretty much the entire time.
Well, that's honestly, and that leads me to the next thing, the next point that I want to make here. You're watching some of these players that can play like almost 20 seasons of fucking hockey, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, where are we at with this? Like, where, you can watch a hockey player like last this long and play so hard, and then you got somebody playing in the NBA for like 12 seasons, and he's like, I'm done, I'm hurt. Like, you know what I mean? I know it's conditioning.
Hockey players are a different breed, my friend.
It's just a different thing. Like, I'm not saying like a basketball player can't do it, but like, it's just amazing the physicality with hockey compared to.
And Crosby,
I don't know, it's just crazy.
12, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, he had concussion issues.
Yeah.
People were thinking that he was done.
He
did whatever he needed to do to get his head straight.
He was your Tua?
Yeah, he was in a Tua-like position, and I think I said that in a prior podcast. Just like, just treat Tua. Like, go talk to Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins and be like, hey, what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, I understand it's maybe a little bit different, but still, it's hockey. You're gonna get bumps. You're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
You're gonna face contact. So whatever, and I know it's a different, like, humans being missiles in football, but also at the same time, you're going full bore. Like, a quarterback, you kind of don't have a choice to get hit sometimes. I don't know. I think you kind of try to figure out, like, hey, what did Sidney Crosby and the Penguins do? And that's why I didn't think that Tua should have played for the rest of this year.
Yeah. What'd your doctors do? What do I do?
Yeah,
how do I do this?
That's why I think the smart thing to have done for the Dolphins this year would have shut Tua down. Be like, listen, we're not playing you. If we can't beat, the Colts. They did beat the Patriots. but we can't beat the Colts, we can't beat the Titans without you, then we're not risking you.
Yeah.
You are our franchise. You are our franchise quarterback. We need you, and we'll just shut you down. And I know you want to play, and I know that's what you don't want to hear right now, but we're in charge, and we're not risking you. We're going to reset, and we'll come back next year with you fully healthy, ready to go. I think that's what would have been the most responsible thing to have done, but I don't run the Dolphins.
Decisions,
Yeah.
Dan.
So, my question for you, both know this won't work for the Pro Bowl because there's
Pro Bowl. What's a Pro Bowl?
yeah, because now they're playing flag football. Well, less said about that.
I don't know
the better.
what that is. Anyway.
But the NBA and Major League Baseball are more international than they've really ever been. Do you think that a Four Nations Faceoff like thing could work with baseball and with basketball? I think baseball would work a little bit more because basketball, like, it's still a heavily dominated American sport, but it's become more international. Some of the best players in the NBA and Major League Baseball, to say that as well, are not from the United States of America.
So I would say, honestly, I think the NBA would probably work because you can see how it works with, I guess, the Olympics. But I know that you can say that with a lot of sports, and generalities. Mm-hmm. But basketball, there's I feel like you could do something like this. I know with basketball, they're really trying to like break up the sport with the in-game tournament or whatever it is. Yeah. Like they're really trying because honestly, I feel like they're really losing some stuff with this. Just how they've been going about with everything. Look at their All-Star game. Like it's 175 to 210. Like it's just a joke.
But then their skills competition is like reliant on we're not doing a 3-point competition with one of the WNBA players. It's like, okay, like I figure because to get someone like me to care about basketball and to care about baseball, you gotta lean into this a little bit. You gotta be like, all right, how do we get Dan to want to watch baseball? It's like, all right, well, I know they do that tournament, that international tournament, some years before the season. I'm like, all right, well, if you made that your all-star game, maybe just do a short little freaking thing between the United States, Japan, Puerto Rico, and just give me a country because you know more about this. Like Colombia, I don't know. I might be more into that because I'm like, all right, national honor on the line. Same thing with basketball. We were at a bar one time and I was bitching to you about the United States of America almost losing to South Sudan for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're not. You're correct. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't know if they could do. I don't know if they could pull off a Four Nations for basketball. I'm not sure if they could do that, but they got to do something other than what they're doing for their NBA All-Star weekend or All-Star whatever, because it just, I feel like they're just playing, they're paying for publicity.
Yeah.
Like just getting their guys out there to see fans and fans getting, it's all money. And I get that. I understand
All-Star games are a joke.
It's such a joke. Like even the skills competition, how many different kind of dunks can you do? Like, I just don't get it. I used to love when we were kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, dunks were different. You're not jumping over people's heads.
Yeah. You're not being clownish about it.
Yeah, I mean, watch Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But I used to love the 3-point competition back when I was into basketball.
That could still be good now because it's the same shit. Like, shoot the three. How many can you make? You're not doing a stylish dunk, a dipsy doodle around a thing and doing a dunk. Like, you're not doing that.
One thing I really want to ask you, though, because my thought process was, obviously hockey can do this because hockey's always been an international sport. Like, it was predominantly not American for the longest time. The United States being a good country in hockey is a young thing, relatively young.
Yeah.
But for baseball, it has gotten really international over the last, I would say, 40 years because there was that what was that? That movie with Tom Selleck, Mr. Baseball, and he was in, but he was like playing like a pitcher. And
I think that wasn't Mr. 3000, was it? No, was it?
I think we're talking about two different movies, but the same premise. But essentially, like Japan has always enjoyed baseball for like the last, I would say, 40 years. I think since like the maybe the 70s or 80s.
They produce very good baseball players.
And then like in Central and South America, the game has gotten really big, especially in like the Caribbean area, like Dominican Republic and Haiti and all that stuff. I think that could work, but it seems to me that you're thinking that basketball would be better. So I'm curious as to why you think that is.
More so with baseball. Baseball's going to be tough because I'm not sure if I'm losing my thought process here. It's I don't know. I feel like if they could just improve now on their actual game for the All-Star instead of just I don't think they can break it up into that. I don't think first I don't think there's enough players from different countries that will be able to have
facilitate that.
Yeah, exactly. If they could make the game worth something, I know that we've talked about how home field advantage for the All-Star game. That's
dumb.
Bullshit.
That was so stupid.
It's just bullshit. But if they could figure out something to play for, but no, and it goes back to every sport now. No one wants to put their players at risk of injury.
Yeah,
and that sucks because we want our fucking guy to go all out every time. You're getting paid all this fucking money. Go out and fucking hit the home runs, create the double play, hit a triple if you can. I want you to go fucking 1,000% when you can. And then recover and do it again the next fucking night.
So let me ask you this. Because it seems to me like you don't think that either one of these sports could actually mimic this.
Most can't.
Do you think it's because of the difference between a hockey player versus all the other athletes? Like hockey players have always been kind of like considered by most commentators in sports
physicality
to be different.
Physicality?
Not even just physicality, but just a different mindset. They're wired different. We're like, oh, hey, I have this more because, as we talked about before, they have that kinship
love
to
of the
their
game.
developmental program. Also love of the game, but I think most players would have at least some degree to a love of the game. Maybe not basketball anymore, but they have that more kinship to that, to putting on the sweater that says USA, as opposed to you never had to do that in the NFL. You can do that with basketball and baseball, but it's not necessarily what's bringing you up, unless I'm terribly mistaken on that. But I don't think there's a huge developmental program in the United States. I think you just come up through, Pee Wee,
Pop Warner. So, my dude, this is why that is because when you're a kid, you put on the skates, you learn how to skate.
Yep.
And then to be a good hockey player, you start when you're like 3 years old.
Yeah, you start 4
years
old.
You got the skates on. You can barely. And we have friends, Liz and Joe, who got the little Lucas, who are skating now. Who's skating now? You start young. You start doing it. Then you progress, and then you know what? As you're doing that from like so young, and then you get a hockey stick in your hand, and you're like, then they just start doing it.
And then you got to wake up like when they're they're not too much older than that, like 7, 8 years old. You got to wake up at 5 a.m.
Dude,
maybe not even 5 a.m. Maybe like 3 or 4 a.m. to get them to the rink and have them skate, because the reason you have to do that is because
life.
It has to feel natural. You got to just go onto the ice and just got to feel like the same way that you walk. I remember the last time I ice skated, the Team USA won the freaking World Cup of hockey. And it was the most unnatural thing to me. And I grew up in ice hockey rinks because my brother used to play. So it was just...
Can you skate?
What's that?
Can you skate?
Not really. No.
I can skate a little bit. I probably skated a couple of years ago, and I was probably say about 5 years ago. I could still do it. Not backwards.
No.
I can't really stop very well, but I can do it.
Just get
out of my way.
I was getting it towards the end of that was a long time ago. I was a young man. I had potential back then. But yeah, I think that was the last time I ice skated, and I was kind of like, oh, well, I got this down. I got the stride down, but I'm like, oh, don't have the stopping down.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference.
It's talent, man.
Yeah.
It's talent.
Yeah, it's sheer talent. And it's so much different from the other games. You can just slap on a pair of sneakers to play basketball. You might suck at shooting shooting a J, but you can still do it. You can just work on it.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Just like hockey starting young. Basketball's the same way.
Yeah.
Muscle memory.
I don't think you necessarily...
bowling is the same way. I used to be a big bowler.
Yeah.
Muscle memory, dude.
You don't have to start so young, though.
No, God, no.
Yeah. You do, if you want to be in the pros, you got to start young. when you're playing basketball, football, or baseball. I don't want to. Baseball is generally considered by most people who commentate on sports the hardest thing to do is hitting a baseball.
Hand-eye, dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how any, but it's so fast. You go to a batting cage,
Yeah.
and try doing that. Phew,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, no.
Go on, do the fast pitch. I'm a big whiffer.
Yeah. It's like even playing softball, man. Sometimes you're just like, oh, wait, I can play shortstop. It's like, I cannot play shortstop.
Yeah, I when I was playing softball for a little bit, like probably 6-7 years ago, and I was like, yeah, I can play shortstop. I used to play shortstop when I was a kid. Nope, put me out in the outfield.
All right, I think it's time that we wrap this up and have a few drinks and hopefully enjoy this USA-Canada game, and then I'll probably have to work on some of this in the intermediary. But, Justin, had a good talk. And for all of you out there, I would like to encourage you to like, comment, and share this. Make sure if you made it all the way here, then that is the best possible thing you could have done is watch this the whole way through. And also, from all of us here at Loud and Drunk Sports, go Team USA.
Just keeps getting better.